Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.
Brilliant to have you on the show, Ben. What an end to the season. But before we get on to 2017, you being Australian, you've obviously had to get over to the United Kingdom. How did all that come around? How did you come and end up on British soil? What was the process to get you here?
It was probably a heap of different key factors that played a part in it. Obviously, I started racing motocross like a lot of people did before their road racing careers, and I sort of made the jump over to road racing in Australia at sort of club level. Just really low level of like racing in Australia. It wasn't nothing serious. It was just purely a bit of fun, and one thing led to another. We started getting serious about it and wanted to make the move into the Australian Championship for the following year, but we sort of just decided against that because I was showing, a fair bit of promise from, people telling me good things and stuff like this, and basically, got pushed into making the jump overseas to come over here into the British Championship that, to be honest with you, I knew nothing about. I probably raced road bikes for 6 months. Previously to that, I'd not even watched it on TV. I wasn't interested at all in the slightest. I had my mindset on being a professional motocross rider, which arguably probably wasn't going to happen at the time. Probably just wasn't good enough. It was as simple as that. And then I just started, taking steps forward on the road bikes and just fell in love with it. And then I jumped straight overseas over here into the BSB paddock and basically learned how to ride a motorbike for the first time, really, and properly at a high level of racing. I can't even remember what year it was. Felt like forever now. I think this is, I'm going into my 5th season next year, so I've completed 4 seasons of racing. So 4 years ago was sort of my first, taste of racing road bike 600s, at a high level.
So you came over from motocross. What traits did you learn in motocross that might be transferable to roads? Is there anything that you can relate that you picked up in motocross and you still use now a little while, or not so much?
I think at the start it helps a lot at the start because, it's hard to explain, but I think it would be more so the fact that when you ride motocross, you come over to road racing, you think, wow, this is quite easy. It's not easy by all means. It's so far from easy. It's unbelievable. Once you get to sort of level that I'm at now, you realize how hard it is. But initially, that first sort of bite into road racing, you think, oh, this is easy, and you fall in love with it. Not because it's easy, but because just how much you can sort of, make that jump from motocross to road racing and really go for it. And then, just one thing led to another. The more and more confidence you get, and when you think you're good, when you're not actually that good, but you actually think you're really good, it just makes you fall in love with the sport.
Absolutely. And when you came over to Britain, did you expect it to be as hard as it's been? Because British Supersport's been so stacked full of talent for so many years now. Did you expect it to be a little bit easier than what it has been for you?
I don't know if I would have thought it would be easy, but I was led to believe purely from my own, by myself, not told by anyone else, but I was led to believe that, just purely by my own mind thinking this, that I would get to grips with it real quick and I'd probably race at the front and I would start winning races because at the end of the day, that's why I come over. So I thought, yeah, no problem. I should be able to. I came over and it was an absolute disaster. I come over and, the team, everything wasn't, we rushed into it, to be honest with you, and everything fell apart. Everything completely that could have gone wrong went wrong. After the first round, to be honest with you, I thought about coming home. My mum, my dad were like, yeah, that's it, finished. Like, we're not doing that again. That was a silly mistake. 17 years old, diving straight overseas to, getting dropped off here by my dad, saying good luck. on your way, mate. You know, all the best. We'll be back home working our asses off so we can pay the bills for you. And I just thought, it sort of just dawned on me what was happening. And yeah, like I said, it couldn't have gone more wrong. And, you know, I was sitting on the side of the track at Brands Hatch it was the first round in, I think it was 2013, sitting in the grandstand. I hadn't even qualified for the race for a number of reasons. I felt like I was good enough to qualify for the race at that particular time. However, I didn't qualify for a number of reasons that I won't get into. But I sat there watching it and I thought, I can do this. I'm looking at these guys, and don't get me wrong, this is crazy compared to what I've ever experienced, but I can do this. And so I didn't lose that belief once we sort of kind of decided that we were going to come home and leave the UK and probably just sack that idea off completely. I believed that I could do it. So I started making contact with people. You know, I was on my last legs. The team had already gone home. I was there at Brands Hatch with, you know, not even a place to stay at the time. You know, starting to make contact with a few of the Aussie guys that I kind of knew at the time that kind of really didn't know. And then one thing led to another. I ended up getting an opportunity for a ride, and that was the base for the rest of the year. Okay, it wasn't fantastic. It wasn't the ideal situation for me for my first year of racing, but it got me into the scene. It got me into the BSB. It got me to learn all the tracks, and it gave me experience for the following year to get a great opportunity with a great guy, Sean Rose at Motorbreakers.
A team that's no longer in the paddock. And you mentioned there that you almost gave up, so to speak. How do you think your life would be now without motorcycle racing? Because to a lot of people, and including me just then, I didn't know about all of that. So to people like me and people at home listening, they probably just see you as the Supersport 600 rider, ex-Stock 6 runner-up. But that's not been the case. So where would you have seen yourself had you decided there and then, this is it, no more motorcycle racing in the UK for me?
I couldn't tell you really, to be honest, because I can't. At this point in time, I'm sitting here in the lounge room of where I live, and I can't actually picture anything other than what I'm doing right now. And that's just purely for the reason is because I'm so focused on trying to become the best that I can't actually vision anything else other than what I'm doing now. So, but, you know, if I'd have to guess, I would probably go home. I would probably end up racing over in Australia, racing the Australian Championship and trying to win Australian Championships. At the end of the day, whatever I'm trying to do, I'm trying to win. So I'd probably go over there and, you know, sort of learn again over there and try and do that.
You mentioned you'd probably be in Australian racing. We've just had a question in from Peter Backhurst. Why is it Australia keeps producing top-class riders like yourself, and it's done it in the past as well, Gobert, Corsa, Bayliss, all of the names, Casey Stoner, of course. What is it in Australian culture that makes you guys so good and prominent? I wish I knew, because if I knew, I'd probably be a rich man, because I would just breed talent over there and make loads of money off them. But I think that it's got a number of things, really. I think a lot of it's got to do with opportunity over in Australia. Like where I live at home, I live on 20 acres of land. You know, I had a motocross track when I was racing motocross. We built a supercross track when I was taking it really seriously. So I had all those facilities on my back doorstep. I could ride it till 9 o'clock at night riding a motorbike. You know, the only person we would pee off is the next door neighbour with noise, but he would get over it over time because we were really close with him, you know. So there's that opportunity out there. We've got lots of land. We've got lots of space. There's all that sort of stuff. I guess we can, gain skill from a very young age. Now, I don't really know how it works over here. I'm sure there is facilities and stuff like that for that over there. That's just purely my opinion, like a guess that might be a case. And maybe just also how Australians work with mindset. Australia is so sports orientated. It's unbelievable. It's drummed into us from such a young age at school that, it's all about sport, all about football, all about cricket, all about all these different sports.
it's our culture over there. You know, I could speak for a lot of people. It's not our culture. It's a massive part of our culture, sport in general. So I think that competitive mindset is in the blood, really. And you know, if you've got a liking to motorbikes, there's so much opportunity for you to do it over there. So I guess that's where it could come from. It's hard to really tell. I'm not 100% sure, but that's probably just my interpretation on it and my opinion on it all.
Okay, brilliant answer that to a question that I hadn't actually planned. So, while we're on the Australian, I was going to leave this question until later, but while we're on the Australian Superbike Championship, is it as healthy as it could be? Because I spoke to Jason O'Halloran, like I was saying earlier in the show, mid-season, and he says it is good, the factories are there, it just needs more exposure. But then I spoke to Josh Brooks, and he just said the competition just isn't there. What's your opinion on Australian Superbike racing as it is now, and also its future?
I don't follow it like seriously close. Purely for the reason is because obviously I'm focused on things over here. But from an outsider, it's really hard to understand why it's not succeeding like BSP. I think this year, from what I could see, it was a very healthy championship. The Australian Superbike Championship was super healthy. You know, you've got the likes of Josh Waters, obviously Australian Superbike champion this year. And we've got a number of other riders all on factory bikes. So you've got factory Suzuki, you've got factory Honda, you've got factory Yamaha, and then you've got Kawasaki really backing riders over there as well. So there's a good, what would you call it, like sort of a wealth of manufacturers coming together to compete. Yep. The depth is probably not there, purely for the reason of costs. I mean, it takes sometimes like 20 odd hours to drive from one circuit to another circuit. So that's how far apart tracks are in Australia. It's like traveling to the other side of Europe. It's basically, you know, a racing in and amongst Europe. So I guess the depth isn't there purely for the reason of travel costs, all those different factors. It's not a cheap sport, let's face it. Everyone that's a part of the sport knows that it's not a cheap sport. And, you know, tyres cost money, bikes cost money, crashing bikes. But then when you chuck that travel aspect into it, I think that's the only reason why the depth's not there. But the talent's there. 100% the talent is there. There's young kids going everywhere into Europe that you guys wouldn't know of, that a lot of people wouldn't know of, that are going into Asia to race. There's a big scene in Asia. There's young kids going in there and doing really, really well. So that just shows that there is talent. It's just how much talent there is. I don't know how much that would be to compare to like something like the BSB where there's endless amount of riders. So I guess that might be a big part of it, really. Okay, because you get the Australians that have gone into the World Super Sports. There's quite a few there. There's obviously you've got Jack Miller in Grand Prix, and you've got Remy Gardner. So the Australians are there, and there's yourself in British Super Sport. You've got Josh Brooks, Jason O'Halloran in Superbikes, so on. So there's definitely there. So maybe it's just a question of exposure. But to the viewers listening in and whatnot, get your thoughts down here, and we'll try and get them out before the end of this interview. On to you now, Ben. We'll go on to you now because all my other questions kind of link in. 2017, what an incredible end to the year. 3 race wins on the bounce. What an end to the season. We'll come to the start of the season in a moment, but talk about them final few rounds for us. It's just a massive turnaround, really, for myself and the team working together. You know, it just something clicked. It's a number of things that I could get into and bore you about all day long, and I've probably said it in loads of different other interviews as well, but it happened for me, and I got the confidence, and, you know, I believe I'm good enough, and that's what you need to have. You need to have belief, and I believe that I'm good enough now, and I can win races, and I think that was a major thing. Every time I was going to the grid, I looked around me, and I knew that I could beat those guys. Now, don't get me wrong, it wasn't going to be easy, and, you know, it wasn't easy. I didn't win every race at the end of the season, but I was there more or less every race. As soon as the rain come down, it was a matter of thinking about how much am I actually going to win by at one stage. I was that confident in the rain. And then I tried to just transfer that into the dry. And, you know, I did transfer that into the dry. After my 3 race wins on the bounce, I managed to, you know, obviously Assen was the first dry race. It was beautiful sunshine. After my 3 race wins on the bounce, should have been 4 race wins, but I choked on that one. And I took off and, you know, I felt so comfortable. I was out in front on the last lap. I was leading. And then obviously come together with Keith, which is another story. But, you know, then after that, I kept it going. Where did we go after? We obviously went to Brands Hatch. Could have quite easily won that race, got second in that race, and then got a 4th in the last race, which, you know, the first place was not even half a second in front of me. So it was that close, you know. I could have quite easily won. I had a chance to win all those last races of the season. So it was just confidence. It was a bit of momentum, all key things really in bike racing that played a part in it.
It's very easy for some people to forget that, you know, you had a great end to the season, but the start of the season was a little bit difficult. Now, we spoke on the phone yesterday, and, you know, it was a bit of a tough end to 2016 on the Craig Fitzpatrick run Yamaha. So did that kind of lead into 2017 a little bit? Did you need to kind of get yourself back up to speed to get to the top of your game again?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was the start of 2016, come into the first round as a rookie. You know, no expectations at all, no pressure whatsoever. And I qualified second at Silverstone, and I'm thinking I got Andy Reid in front of me, which is a guy I've watched race for however many years, thinking, yeah, wow, he's amazing. I'm second to him. I've got, you know, the likes of James Westmoreland. I've watched race in a British Superbike Showdown. I've, you know, all these guys around me, and I'm thinking, this is pretty ridiculous. And I got super excited, and I took off on that race, and all I wanted to do was get into the lead because I wanted to prove to everyone I was good. And the first lap, I chucked it away in a massive crash and destroyed the bike. And then we, you know, pick ourselves up from that, and I come to the next round, and I dislocate my AC joint in a massive high side again. I think I was second place at the time. I had I broke some ribs. I did my shoulder, and I was pretty banged up and like a little bit scarred from it all. I think that was round 3, Alton Park. I can't remember exactly how it went anyway. It doesn't matter. I banged myself up, and, you know, all the rest of that year, that was playing on my mind, my actual, my body, what do you call it? Like health was not good. I wasn't training properly. My mind had gone. Then the relationship with the team had gone. Everything just fell apart. Financially, everything was just not good. I wasn't in a good place. And then I got a new lease of life coming into this season with Gearlink. Sort of, you know, in different circumstances I was at the start of this year, in a whole heap of areas. But I sort of brought across a little bit of a negative vibe. It's in the back. It was never forgotten about over the preseason. Training hard, which I thought was hard, which wasn't hard enough. I come to round 1, very first session of the year, top the first session. Thought, here we go. This is what we want. Qualified 3rd or 4th or whatever it was, and, you know, was battling for the lead for most of the race. Then got arm pump and sort of fade back a couple of places and finished on the podium for the first race, which I thought was fantastic. But everyone sort of developed and made steps, and I sort of stayed in the one spot and didn't really develop because really I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to still race at that level. I came into the Super Sport as a rookie, banged myself up trying too hard, and I still wasn't ready mentally. And once I sort of overcome that and overcome the fact that, you know, stop over trying, stop, you know, beating yourself up when you're not first place and all these things, that's sort of when it made the change in that halfway point. But before that, it was just negativity and all different things that were just playing a part. Once I got through that, it was easy. Racing was easy. I was going to the track with a smile on my face. I was coming away from the track with a smile on my face. Everything was great. So that's basically how it was. That 2016 season scarred me in a lot of ways that I've only got myself to blame, to be honest with you. And that has given me a wealth of experience to race for championships, in these latter years.
Yeah, but you've enjoyed your racing, and like we say, you made that step halfway through the year. You started coming really, really good, more prominent, definitely up the sharp end, if not in that fourth place battle. And then you got on the podium, then you started winning, and all of a sudden, third in the championship. Not all of a sudden, but third in the championship, and you kind of come out of not nowhere, but you'd shown us what you demonstrated was in the first few races of 2016. Because whilst it was a difficult season, you beat yourself up with injuries, I think, was it the second round of the season or third round of the season? But you did come back from injury and win your first race and knock hill. So the talent that we saw back then was always on display. How has the Kawasaki been for you to ride? Because obviously you've been on the Yamaha, but what was the main characteristic of the Kawasaki that you found a little bit different to what you'd already learned?
Yeah, it is quite a bit different. Different riders have different opinions on the Yamaha and the Kawasaki, which are, the two sort of main machine chosen by people in the Supersport class, 600, all 600 racing. They've both got their strong points. It took me a little bit to adjust to that. Obviously, my teammate Andy Irwin he's been riding one his whole career. He knew what he needed to do, and I needed to learn off that. I needed to learn different things because I rode it in a way that probably doesn't work. You're probably going to have a lot of crashes the way I was riding it, and I sort of just had to be a little bit more clever with the way that I set the bike up. So for half the year, I was guessing a lot with what I thought the right direction was. The team had worked with lots of different riders in the past where they're all different riding styles, and it took me a while to believe in that, what needed to be done. Once I got that belief in it, it was like riding. I still remember that stock 600 year I finished runners up, and I was just on rails. I just absolutely could do anything I wanted to do, and I'm sure there's lots of riders that have been in that position in their career at some point. When you can do that, when you can do whatever you want on a motorbike, it's a fantastic feeling. And by the end of the year, the Kawasaki at the start, it wasn't like that. I had to work a lot harder. But towards the middle of the year, once we've dialed that setup in that how I wanted it, I could ride it how I wanted to ride it, and it felt like my bike. So that's just going to be a major, it's just a major thing moving forward. And this year, the last year, each race that went on, I gained a little bit more experience, and it just felt a little bit. I'm sort of just rambling on about how my confidence was, but it's hard to really tell you the difference on the bikes. Obviously the Yamaha likes it on the front end, and the Kawasaki steers a little bit more from the rear end. Everyone's got different opinions, but purely, to be honest with you, mate, it was just down to confidence in the end that it felt like my bike, and that's why I was able to succeed on it.
We say that the sport is all about confidence, and one aspect of the confidence, especially towards the end of the season, would have been getting geared in Kawasaki's first win of the season, because it was obviously well documented Andy Irwin hadn't won one. Did beating your teammate to the first win for the team also give you that extra bit of confidence as well?
Yeah, it's hard really, because Andrew was knocking on the door of a win for way before me, and he just never seemed to be able to get it. So to rock up after a slump of form and turn up and win by, I think it was like 10 seconds, 11 seconds, and get the team's first win. And he was second again, which was like his something like 8th time second place for the season. It must have been so hard for him, and it didn't really give me a boost of like confidence to I'd bet him for I got the first win for the team, blah blah blah. It almost didn't come as a surprise as how it should have been, because the race was wet. The race before that, I'd checked out by 10 seconds and I'd managed to screw it up. But the very next race was wet again, and I kind of thought, well, I should win this one. I've learned from my mistake, and that's what happened. I checked out by 10 seconds, so it didn't really hit me like a surprise win, if that makes sense, which it should have been, because it was the first win for the team. So it didn't just fill me with like, I'm going to be unstoppable now. I've beaten my teammate that's been trying to win all year and all that sort of stuff. It was kind of expected, because it was wet. The team sort of thought, right, come on, now is our time to get this win that we should have had last race. So I guess, it definitely got that ball rolling for sure. I started building major confidence from that, but momentum, should I say? But it wasn't like a win that would come by a surprise and then just flip the switch. I actually kind of expected to win it, and I had that expectations on my shoulders.
I was just about to say, it's almost like you knew it was going to come, and after you nearly done it, it was going to come within the next few races. Being in Supersport this year, there's been a very divided opinion down the middle about whether the Moto2 bike should be allowed in, and all these kind of discussions have gone on. Some riders are for it, some are against it. What's your thoughts about it, without upsetting loads and loads of people? What would you make of your season as a Supersport rider, but having to contend with a non-point scoring Moto2 bike?
I guess this is quite a common question. It's a common thing that comes up after most races. If the Moto2 was on the podium, it was like, an uproar from many different parties, fans, all sorts of things in the social media, loads of different stuff. I guess I just sit on the fence a little bit, because I've expressed my opinions once before, didn't really work out for me well. It wasn't a bad opinion. It was purely just sort of like a question about it. I questioned it. I guess you've got to think you've got a Moto2 in amongst 600 Supersport bikes, completely different bike. It's the only one. Sometimes there was another one. So it wasn't a second make championship as such. You see like Moto3 and 125, or not Moto3, 125. Now it's Moto3 and stock Moto3, or whatever it is. There's two classes running in conjunction. So it's not really that. It's, I believe, I'm not really clued up on it all, because I try not to worry about it, but I believe it's a test project. So for me, racing for a championship, a British Supersport championship, and you're racing with 5 guys, which then becomes 6 guys, because the pilot that was on the bike is a class rider. He's a British, I believe he's a British Supersport champion. He knows what he needs to do to win races. So it then becomes 6, but actually it's 5. So when you're racing at the front, trying to win a race, and say, for instance, you're second place and Moto2's third, the Moto2 comes past you and splits you and first place apart, going on to the last lap, say, for instance, and you can't get to first place now. You have to now worry about passing a motorbike that's not scoring points. From a racer's point of view, which is purely just a racer's point of view, I'm not talking from a point of view as a promoter, or as in a future of the sport. I'm purely being selfish and talking about the current situation, and as a racing point of view, I hated it. And that's purely like, who wouldn't hate it? Who wouldn't sit there and like a Moto2 diving up the inside of you, which is completely in his own right. He's a worthy, rider that deserves to be on podiums. He's a good enough rider for that. So, yeah, okay, if he's been given that opportunity, he's going to take that opportunity. However, I don't agree with it, purely from my point of view, because I'm trying to win a British Supersport Championship, which has to be understood. And that is no negative attack towards the promoters, towards the people developing the Moto2. If that's what they decide that they're going to do, then we all have to get on with it. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone has to deal with it. So if it goes against my favour in a certain scenario, then it goes against my favour at that time. It could go against someone else's favour in another time. So whatever they choose moving forward, for me, I would prefer it. To be honest with you, I actually don't know what alternative there is. I haven't thought about it. I haven't sat there and pondered over it and thought, they should do this, they should do that, because I don't know. So, for me to kind of say that I disagree with it is wrong also, because I don't know a solution that's going to fix it. So, but for me in a race scenario, I don't like it. It's annoying, frustrating sometimes, but it is what it is.
Would it be fair to say that it has been an interference of some description, now, whether it be to you or to other riders?
What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Would it be fair to say that it's an interference, the Moto2 bike, in either with you or with other riders? Because we've heard complaints from team owners. That's basically what I'm saying. In some cases, it has interfered in races. It's interfered in multiple riders' races. But what I'm trying to say is that that is what's happening. That's what's happening in the sport. That's what's happening in British Supersport. So we have to deal with that. But he's not scoring. So my opinion on it is that I don't like it purely as a selfish point of view. I'm not thinking from a point of view of development, the future of the sport. I'm only thinking about now. So people are going to have loads of different other opinions, which is completely fine, and I'm happy for that to happen. And I don't want to start a war with people about what's right and what's wrong, because I don't know what's right and what's wrong. Just for me, in the current situation or the previous situation of this season, I would have loved nothing more for that motor to just stay out of the way. But it is what it is. It's the same for everyone. So, you've just got to build a bridge and get over it and, racing, because that's what we did. We ended up just racing, and there was no malice, after a race saying, get out of my way, you idiot, or anything like that. It was shake hands, good race, mate, well done, and move on. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to come to you for the final question I have, because we have quite a few questions from fans to put to you. So just a summary then of your 2018 plans. What can we expect Ben Currie to be on, and in what class? Have we got any updates of where you are in negotiations with 2018's prep?
Yeah, I mean, it's in, negotiations are in full swing at the moment. If they weren't, I'd be in a bit of trouble, but, it's hard to say at the moment. I'm not in really a position to really say what's happening, because I don't 100% know yet. As soon as I know, it will be getting released. But, I'm working closely with, obviously, Gearlink, being really looking after me this season and really, bringing me forward. I want to stay loyal to them guys, and I want to, do battle with them next year and try and win a championship and win a Supersport championship. But, we're getting closer to knowing, what's happening, but this process doesn't just happen overnight, especially in the situation that I am in financially. All these different scenarios that are a big part of, the racing these days. you can't just dive straight into a contract and then go into next season this early. But I have done that in the past. I've jumped into contracts and rushed into contracts and stuff like that. And, I've definitely not regretted any contracts, but I've dived into contracts early and been set in stone there. So this year, we're just going to take our time. Gearlink are happy. We're talking with them, making sure everything is perfect. And then we'll sign contracts and then we'll go racing next year, hopefully. Hopefully that's what will happen. But at the moment, it's really hard to, confirm what I'll be doing next year, but that is sort of my intentions.
Brilliant to hear that at least you'll be somewhere in Britain. But there's a question coming. We'll get to the fan question now from Rob Venegur. I hope I pronounced his name right. Good evening, Rob. He says, Ben, do you see a future for yourself in the World Superbike paddock?
Yeah. I mean, as a kid, me going to the gym every day and training and stuff, I think about being the best in the world, and that's what motivates me. That's what should motivate everyone. So at this current point of my career, it's, to be the best in Britain in order for me to be the best in the world. So I definitely see a future in the World Championship for sure. I guess every kid's goal is to race MotoGP. So for me to say, I'm quite content in the British Superbike Championship and that's where I'll stay, I'd be lying. Who knows? That may happen, and that may be a good thing. I don't know, but definitely see a future for sure in the World Championship. I would love to contend for World Championships, that's for sure.
That's brilliant to hear. And of course, you need an Australian, a very fast Australian, in World Superbikes. But away from motorcycle racing, now I've got another question coming. Before I ask the question, how much do you follow cricket?
I used to play a little bit of cricket, to be honest, just quietly. But, I follow it enough to kind of know what's happening. Yeah. Okay. Why is that? Is there a question about cricket?
There is. Simon White wants to know, Ben, what do you think your chances are of making the Ashes? Or making the
Ashes?
Yeah, making the Ashes. I guess that's a cricket-related question of making a successful campaign in the Ashes. I don't know. I'm not a cricket person myself.
What, me, myself, or the actual Australian team?
We'll go for you yourself, since he's addressed you in the actual question, I think. Yeah, what do you think you'll ever make the Ashes?
The only thing I'll be making is the third row back in the party stand on Boxing Day when I'm watching Australia whoop England's butt. That's about it, really, to be honest.
Oh, dear. We'll hold you to that one. Oh, dear. I'm just checking to see if there's any more. I'm not sure. Oh, there is one more. Simon Hall. So another Simon now. In Australia, they like car racing bikes. They like car racing. Bikes don't get the big coverage. Is that true? Is because obviously Australia is massive into its V8s, into the V8 supercars.
Yeah.
Is that a factor maybe to why the Australian Superbike Championship hasn't got the exposure?
I guess it's a really good question, to be honest. I've never actually thought of that. But yeah, I guess it could have a massive part in it, because the V8 supercars, as probably everyone really knows about, is just such a massive sport. You've got the likes of Red Bull, they've got a team, you've got all these different manufacturers, you've got 50,000, 60,000 people coming to a race meeting, you've got best drivers in the world going there. It is an unbelievable championship in motorsport. And I guess maybe that just floods the media, that is mainstream over there. Everyone knows about V8 supercars. So I guess maybe that just overpowers everything else. And that's got a reason of why the Australian Superbike Championship, can't make that massive mark on, mainstream TV and all these sort of things and get, the 30,000, 40,000 people there. I guess that could have a big part of it.
Exactly, and I suppose there is that divide between cars and bikes, like there is, I suppose, across the world. There's a little bit of it in this country, really, with Formula One and British touring cars. But that's going to be a wrap, because we've gone on for 40 minutes. It's been an absolute pleasure, I've got to say, to talk to you, Ben. Thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, brilliant stuff. I hope you've enjoyed yourself.
No problem, man. Thanks a lot for, giving me the opportunity to speak on here. I've been following the show and continue to follow the show. So thanks very much. And, have a good time.
Thanks, Ben. And we'll catch up soon, no doubt. Thank you very much.
Motorsport Radio. The Superbike Show on Motorsport Radio.